Hey friends, Ash here. Welcome back to Gents. We are making our way through 2025. Yeah. Really quickly, in your mind, think to yourself, has 2025 so far been a strong year for fragrances, a weak year for fragrances, or somewhere in between? Now, I know a lot of times when it's like in the moment, the knee-jerk reaction is, it sucks. 2025, it sucks. And then when you're in the middle of 2024, that sucked too. 2023, trash. Going all the way back to the beginning of time. It's just how it is. But since we're starting to head towards the latter half, the end of the year, I figured let's go ahead and revisit the fragrances released this year, the most popular ones so far, from number 10 through to number 1. And I'm also really interested to see, as we head into 2026, how the final top 10 is gonna shake out, because there have been some fragrances released here recently that I think are going to crack into that top 10 as time goes on. All of these are gonna be linked in the description down below in the order from 10 to 1, and we're gonna start off with number 10, which is Devotion by Dolce & Gabbana. And this one is really kind of odd because Dolce & Gabbana has already announced a new flanker of this fragrance. Yeah, I actually can't remember the last time that that's happened, at all. I'm sure it has, it's just not popping into my mind. And by that I mean when a big fragrance brand has started a new line. Now I know there was already a ladies version, but this is, a new line for men. But when a big brand has started a new line in that same year, gone ahead and put out a flanker already. And you may also be asking yourself, well, how are you pulling this? What is this top 10? Well, it's the top 10 most popular from 2025 for men as of now, according to the ratings, the rankings on Fragrantica. Which, can I rant just really for 1 second about Fragrantica? Almost unusable sometimes. Please, there's gotta be some people out there in the comments who go to Fragrantica sometimes on their phone. This happens constantly. It's so junky that it will pop up just scammy ads that are like this. I had that on my phone earlier and I was like, I'm gonna leave that so I can show it to people, but that has to happen to some of you too. So let's talk Devotion just really quickly. This one has a very simple note breakdown. It's centered around lemon and coffee. There's also patchouli in here as well. One thing I will give it credit for is it smells different than anything else that's in the top 10 or really any of the big designer releases this year. That being said, for me, it was more kind of like a neutral release. I didn't really like it or love it. I also didn't dislike it or hate it. It was just it was okay. It's a little sweet, a little green. It has that coffee aspect that smells like a very designer take on Acqua's Awake, which is done by the same perfumer. Not that this smells the same as that fragrance, just the coffee accord is kind of like a more freshened up designer take on the coffee accord used in that one. And I do wonder how well this one is doing just as far as sales goes. Because I know that Dolce & Gabbana was hoping for just a smash this year because they came out with this one, they came out with the K flanker, now they're coming out with the flanker of this one. They came back out with light blue, a light blue flanker. So last year they really did pretty much nothing, and then this year they're like, we're gonna hit them with all this stuff. And I feel like, and this could just be, my perspective from the outside looking in, but I feel like none of them really hit all that well. So we'll see how the new one comes out, the new flanker of this, the Parfum edition. Obviously it should be darker, a little deeper, richer, but hopefully a little better than this one. So starting off, not super strong, but yeah, Devotion. Number 9 is the new Terre Eau de Parfum Intense. And I gotta admit, I'm actually really surprised at what was in the top 10 and what wasn't. Some of them that are more recent releases, it makes sense why they're not in there, even though I think they're better than a lot of the ones that are in the top 10. By the way, I just pulled up Fragrantica on my phone again. It took about 45 seconds. Guys, come on. Your Norton subscription is out of date. Right. So this one, interestingly enough, has coffee. Again, yeah, so number 10, number 9 both have coffee. This one also has Lava Stone, which is a much more interesting note, even though obviously Lava Stone is not within the fragrance itself. It's just an imaginary note. Also has woods, bergamot, black pepper, and some licorice as well. It's an interesting one in the sense that it fits into the Terre line, you know, that kind of citrusy, woodsy, classy, gentlemanly scent profile, but also may not work super duper well for people who want it to follow closer to what the original Terre was and is. It's another one that I think is not too bad, but not amazing. I do have to admit, I prefer Au Givre that came out before. A very different type of fragrance though to this one. That one's more citrusy, fresh, spring, summertime. But Terre coming in at number 9. Number 8 is the new Gentleman Society Ombre. And to my own taste, I like this one more than either of these. It's got a nice robust note breakdown. It has tobacco, it's got narcissus, it has iris, it has vanilla. Also have woody notes in there, nutmeg, and some aromatics as well. This one is definitely a little more gentlemanly, slightly more grown up. It has some sweetness to it, but it's not that more typical bubblegum or fruity sweetness. This one is a touch powdery as well, a little creamy. I'd say it's the best of the Gentleman Society lineup. I wouldn't go as far to say that it's better than like Reserve Privé, but it can play in that same ballpark. So Eau de Toilette Intense, Gentleman Boisé, Gentleman Reserve Privé, Eau de Parfum, like all those are generally, not by everybody, but generally held in a little bit of a higher esteem than the Gentleman Society fragrances, the first two. But I think this one, you can put right in with those, just as good. So yeah, this one right here, top 10, yeah, for sure. Around the turn of the year, when I gather up all the fragrances that came out this year and kind of rank them to my own personal taste, this one will be there. These two, not sure. Next up is the new Khamrah du Khan. So anytime a Khamrah comes out, people are gonna be interested, people are gonna be excited, so not a surprise to see this in the top 10. And that Khamrah DNA, whichever fragrance you get in the lineup, just works. People love this stuff. And that does smell good. It is one of those ones that gets better with time. Also packs a little more punch with time as well. Khamrah Qahwa, also very strong. I would say that one and this one easily at this point outperform the original Khamrah, so if that's important to you, be aware of that. Great sweetness, once again, a good amount of spice, little hint of smokiness in here, some tobacco once again. Fall and winter time, this stuff smells amazing, and it is a great bang for your buck. So this one being in the top 10 makes absolute sense. A lot of people are gonna be scooping this up, gonna be wearing this, talking about it, which is gonna drive that up the rankings. And we've got some surprises coming up, guys, some fragrances that you may or may not agree with where they're ranked. We'll talk about that when we get there. But before we get there, really quickly, the codes. The Gift Express codes are now unlimited use, but they do only give 15% off over orders of $400. Everything else is 10%. And then there are codes for Fragflex, the perfume box, JOMASHOP. Those only work within the app, but you can use those when you're shopping to save yourself a little money. Moving up one spot, it is Acqua de Jo Elixir. Crazy thing about this, if you went back, let's say to when Sauvage Elixir was released, like just after that, before everybody came out with an Elixir, if Acqua de Jo Elixir came out at that point, it probably would have been, I would say, a top 3 release of the year, just in terms of how much people are talking about it, especially with it being an Acqua de Jo, you know, one of the biggest lines ever. But because this one came out this year, after so many other elixirs have come out, the name has lost maybe a little luster when you tack Elixir on the end, so it finds itself here. And in terms of the scent profile, this one, to an extent, you know, it takes a page out of the Sauvage Elixir playbook. So what I mean by that is, when Sauvage Elixir came out, people smelled it, they were like, oh, this is great. It smells a little bit like they went back and they were inspired by some fragrances from back in the 80s perhaps, and they said, let me take that, okay? And now I'm gonna rework it, retool it, and release it as a modern fragrance. And it worked. With Acqua de Jo Elixir, they kind of did the same thing, but they went like, let's go back to Dior's fragrances from the past, take this one, and go ahead and rework that and release it. And that fragrance is Fahrenheit Cologne. Also, you could say Aqua Fahrenheit, which was the fragrance that came out before Fahrenheit Cologne, but then that one was discontinued and replaced by Fahrenheit Cologne as the summertime Fahrenheit of the day. What I mean by that is, if you're more familiar with Aqua Fahrenheit, not Fahrenheit Cologne, then you may get that similarity here. And vice versa is true also. If you're more familiar with Fahrenheit cologne, you may get that here and not Acqua Fahrenheit. And it's gonna be that violet leaf that's in here. You can smell it immediately as soon as you spray this. But it's not just that, it's kind of the Fahrenheit mixed with the Acqua di Gio DNA, a little bit more Acqua di Gio Parfum because it is a little heavier, you know, a little bit. It still has that freshness, but it has a little more density to it. And Acqua di Gio Elixir is basically that. It's, you know, taking one fragrance line and melding it with another, and there you go. And this is one of those ones that can grow on you a lot. You know, it's one of those ones where, yes, they are definitely doing what I just said, blending up a couple fragrances together, but it smells good. Not my favorite in the whole Acqua di Gio lineup, but not terrible either. Top 5 now, Forever Wanted Elixir by Azzaro. And this is one that, you know, maybe you would think it would be a little bit higher after the success of the Most Wanted, but top 5 is still really far up there. So I really love this one. Like, this is probably one of my favorites of the year so far. It's the raspberry off the top that really does it for me. Really sweet, attention grabbing. My wife loves this stuff. That doesn't hurt. The leather that's in here is nice. It has a masculine lean to it, but at the same time, sophisticated. You know, it's got a nice elegance to it while still having a little punch. And they kind of play off each other, the raspberry and the leather. It just works really well. Also has solid performance. And yeah, this fall and this winter, I'm looking forward to wearing this stuff. It's gonna be one of the ones that I really put through its paces. And I could see this, you know, kind of maintaining top 5, even as some of the other fragrances that have come out work their way up the list. It's just really well done, fantastic stuff. Number 4, almost in the top 3, Stronger With You Parfum. So if you wanted to detract from this one, you could say, it's not doing anything new enough. You know, it's keeping it safe. It's right there in that Stronger With You wheelhouse, you know, similar to everything else that came before it, even more similar to Stronger With You, absolutely. And that would be valid. Yeah, I mean, it's not pushing things that far. And you can look at the note breakdown and kind of know that's what's going on. You know, chestnut, vanilla, pink pepper, lavender, a little touch of mandarin and some sage. It's about the most like Stronger With You basic note breakdown possible. But it does have a lot of things going for it. It's got performance, good longevity, good projection. So it's gonna get you noticed, it's gonna last. Obviously, it's still sexy, it's still a compliment puller, people still enjoy the way that it smells. Fall and winter, you can wear it whenever you want. Has a touch of like smokiness to it, so it's gonna smell a little bit more elevated, slightly less playful than some of the other ones, but yeah, a little more buttoned up while still keeping that DNA intact. And for a lot of people, that's gonna be what they want. You know, that's gonna do it for them. And that's why it finds itself all the way up here at number 4, but it's not in the top 3. What is in the top 3 is this, Elixir Absolute, which this one is interesting because it's one that obviously really popular, but on the one hand, you have a lot of people who are like, it's worse than Le Male Parfum. It's worse than Le Male Elixir, and so I don't care. Then on the other side, you have a lot of people who are like, no, it's good on its own right. It's just as good as those, and actually, I like it more. I'm not saying that, I'm saying some of the people say it. So you've got this big divide where it's like, some people say this stuff is crap, it shouldn't exist. Other people are saying, no, it's absolutely amazing. And I guess some people in between, kind of like me, who are like, oh no, it's pretty good, but the other ones maybe are a little better, but this is still pretty good. Now, is it potentially redundant for some people? For sure it is. But once again, it's ticking a lot of boxes. It's got the performance down, the compliment factor, what most people are looking for when they purchase a fragrance, it does well. Nice sweetness in here, for sure. Plum off the top, along with cinnamon. Also some cardamom, bergamot, lavender, tonka as it dries down. And really, if you do a side-by-side with this one and Le Male Elixir, this is a little bit richer, almost. Definitely, as I said, similar, so it could be redundant, but it stands apart really well on its own also. And this one would also, I would say, be in the top 10 for myself at the end of the year as well. Now, before we get to the top 2, some of the big fragrances that did not make it into the top 10 that were beaten out by Devotion. Again, at least as of when I'm filming this video, as time goes on, this will change as more people vote and more people make their voice heard. Le Beau Flower Edition by Jean Paul Gaultier, which I thought had a potential to be one of the biggest of the year. You know, it was announced very early in the year. Le Beau Le Parfum, Le Beau Paradise Garden, both extremely well loved, but that one just did not catch on in the same way. It's not as strong as far as performance goes. And it's not as floral, actually, as you would think, since it's called Flower Edition. But I do think that the name probably didn't help it all that much, because a lot of guys, when they see Flower Edition on the front of a fragrance, they're like, ah, that's okay. So brands, maybe don't do that. And also the performance on it being worse than all the other Le Beaus probably didn't help. Born in Roma Extra Dose, also beaten out by Devotion, which is another crazy one because a lot of the Born in Roma fragrances, Intense, Coral Fantasy, Yellow Dream, even Green Extravaganza to an extent, have a big following. A lot of people that love them, but Extra Dose has not yet quite caught on the same way that some of those others did. And that one does have good performance, so the performance is not hurting that one. The new Club de Nuit Lionheart, not in the top 10. And you may think, yeah, it's an arm off, whatever. But a lot of times those Club de Nuit fragrances, when they drop, they get a big bunch of support and people talking about them. But with that one, it's a clone of Le Male Elixir, and there are a bunch of different clones of that fragrance, so it may be something where there's just a lot of them and, you know, kind of falls by the wayside a little bit. Now I'm gonna run through some of the other really big ones very quickly that are actually further down in the rankings right now. The new Myself Absolute, not even close to the top 10 right now. It's down in 23rd as of this video. The new Why Le Parfum, the new version, also down in 22nd. Bad Boy Elixir is down there. Phantom Elixir. The new Scandal Pour Homme Intense did not make huge waves, at least not yet. Spice Bomb Metallic Musk, Explorer Extreme, Million Gold Elixir, Invictus Victory Absolute, Versace Eau Fraiche Extreme, Code Elixir by Armani, Acqua di Gio Profondo Eau de Toilette, Polo 67 Eau de Parfum, Ralph's Club New York, the new Prada Paradigm, and Boss Bottled Beyond. All of those defeated by Devotion, at least for now. Number 2 is Assad Bourbon by Lattafa, which is kind of crazy that it's all the way up here, but there it is. Now, obviously it does not hurt that it's a Lattafa. Lattafa with these two lines, they have something that people are looking for. And this one is a little bit of a blend in a way. So it's gonna remind you of a few different fragrances, but it's also kind of doing its own thing to an extent. So like Valentino Uomo Born in Roma Intense, you're gonna get that here. The Most Wanted Parfum, some of the Stronger With Yous, some of the Scandals, kind of that vibe. It's a sweet, sexy, compliment pulling scent on the cheap, and it's a Lattafa Assad. So there it is. Number 1, Dior Homme Parfum. Now a lot of the reasons this is right there at the top is because people have let everyone know how unhappy they are about the changes from the original Dior Homme Parfum to this one. And look, I will take the original Dior Homme Parfum 10 times out of 10 over this. But this is also going to outsell the original Dior Homme Parfum, which is really what Christian Dior cares about. And I will say, I love the opening. I actually really, really like the opening of this scent. And the more time goes on, the more I smell this one, I dig the opening. The iris is nice, fresh, sweet, well done. It's fleeting though. The iris in the opening is not sticking around long. And then as it starts to dry down, you get more sweetness that comes out. It becomes more of a standard modern men's fragrance. You know, one that's, yes, seeking positive attention, and it'll get it, but it doesn't have maybe quite the identity that the original Dior Homme Parfum had, which is why a lot of people are unhappy with it. It ends up smelling a little similar to Code Parfum, Ultramall, Le Male Parfum. It's drawn comparisons to a few different fragrances. So it gets more ambery, sweet as it dries. That iris, like I said, fades pretty quickly. That being said, if you're after something that does have that kind of compliment pulling pedigree done in a very modern, fresh, sweet way, Dior Homme Parfum will crush at that. The original was essentially like a 10 out of 10 masterpiece for people who love fragrances. This one is something made for people who want something easily worn, easily digestible, that pulls positive attention. They're two diametrically opposed things. But as of right now, this is the number 1 most popular fragrance on Fragrantica. So there it is. That is, as of this video, the 10 most popular men's fragrances that have come out this year. It is kind of a motley crew. Let me know what you think about it. Which ones are your favorite from here? Which are your least favorite from here? And which ones are gonna work into the top 10 before we tick over to the next year? Thank you guys for hanging with me. Stay safe out there. Take care of yourselves. See you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys. Bye.